Hey everyone, it's Michelle here. Today, instead of doing a card tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how I created these Lunchbox note cards. So these are really fun for sticking into your kids' lunchboxes, but I don't have kids, so sometimes I just give these to my boyfriend, or if you're giving a friend a present, this is really fun to stick on top as well. So there are just a lot of different fun uses that you can do with these. So I'm starting off with some die cut squares. These are like a postage stamp die cut that are about 4 inches wide on each side. And I just cut these on my Silhouette, but if you have some kind of die that you want to use, you can go ahead and use that. And I'm just trimming some squares that are slightly smaller than these postage stamp shapes. And this is going to be kind of like the inside of the stamp. So I am going to be doing some stamping with this stamp set from the Alleyway Stamps, and this is called Baby on Board. So this is supposed to be like a baby stamp set. You can see it has a little stork with holding the baby, but I'm going to be using this little jar, and there's a little sentiment that says yum, which I think will be perfect because it fits perfectly inside that little window. So I'm just keeping it really simple here because I don't want this to take too much time since this might be thrown away or not kept as long as a card. So I just really want this to go quickly but still be really fun and make someone happy. So I'm going to be stamping this with My Favorite Things hybrid ink. And this is a Copic friendly ink, so it won't bleed when I use alcohol-based markers. So I'm just going to go ahead and stamp this all over each of these pieces randomly so that it looks kind of like a background piece or a patterned paper. And then after I finish stamping those, I'm going to take that sentiment that says yum and I'm going to stamp that on the insides of just a couple of the jars. I don't have to do all of them here, but I just wanted to make an appearance. And then I'm going to bring out my Copics and color this in really quickly. So I'm not going to be doing any fancy shading because, as I said, this is kind of like a smaller project than a card, and I don't want to put too much work into it in case it does get thrown out right afterwards, but I still want it to be really fun and colorful. So I'm going to stick with a very graphic approach here, mostly just using one solid color for each image. You can see I'm doing a little bit of blending for my gray blending into clear, and I'm just using a colorless blender for that. But that went by really quickly, and I'm just going to fill in the backgrounds with solid colors so that it creates a really colorful and graphic look. And that wasn't too hard at all because these shapes are pretty easy to color in. So now I'm bringing back in my background pieces, but I want to create a mat for this front panel that we've colored just to add a little bit more pattern and color. And I decided to stick with solid colored cardstocks for this. I think bringing in pattern paper just was a little too distracting from the front piece, and the colored cardstock really helps with this graphic look that I'm going for. So I trimmed off the ends a little bit because the squares were a little too big, and I'm just taping those to these solid colored cardstocks, and I just picked colors that matched with the backgrounds that I colored in, and I think this just ties it in really nicely. And they look almost like cartoons, which is kind of the look that I'm going for with Lunchbox notes. It just keeps it really fun and playful. So after that was finished, I decided this was kind of just like a background and it needed something else. And I wanted to bring in another sentiment, but I didn't have one that would work. So I'm going to create my own using these alpha stamps, which are also from the Alleyway Stamps. And I'm just picking out the letters that will spell love you. And this is a short phrase that will be perfect and fit on the front of the card. So I'm just going to mount those onto my acrylic block. And before I stamp this onto vellum, which you can see I pulled on the side, I'm actually going to do a test run on some scrap paper. I find that sometimes with alpha stamps, the spacing is a little bit off because of the area of the clear part that's around it. So I stamped it once and then I adjusted and then made everything just the way I liked it. And then I brought in some vellum, and I'm going to be stamping this in Stays On because vellum does take a little bit longer to dry and I don't want it to smudge. So Stays On is a really good permanent ink for this. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp this twice because I do have two cards here. And I saw that it was still a little bit wet, and stays on ink will dry if you leave it, but I was a little impatient, so I decided to go ahead and just cover that in clear embossing powder. And this will give it a little bit of shine, but it will also help to seal that ink in once I heat set it, which I went ahead and did off camera. So StazOn isn't really supposed to be meant for embossing, but since it's clear, you don't really see that many mistakes, and it really does help to make sure that nothing smudges, so I thought it turned out okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and trim off these strips so that they'll be nice up against the letters. And I tried to put it straight on top of the pieces that I colored, but I thought it was a little too see-through. So what I'm doing is I'm flipping them over to the back, and I'm coloring the backs of these vellum pieces with Copic markers, and Copics work well with vellum. It comes out a little bit more muted, but it does stay put and it doesn't smudge or anything like that, which is really great. At first I went with the lighter green that I used on the background, but it wasn't showing up enough, so I went with a darker green, and now you can really see that it shows up, but it's still a little bit muted because it's on the back of that vellum. So I went ahead and did the same thing with a yellow marker for the other card. And I did 2 layers of that just to make it a little bit darker. And you can see there that you can see the color just slightly, so that it really helps to differentiate the vellum piece from the background. And I just thought this was a really great way to easily add a sentiment while still showing the background. And you can see I'm not taping the front, and I'm just adding adhesive to the back so that the front pops up a little bit. And this also helps because when vellum is not adhered straight onto a piece, it's a little bit more blurred, which is great for this purpose because then you can see the sentiment a little bit better. So I just quickly adhered those to the background die cuts that I had, and these were all finished, and you can see how the back is perfectly blank, so you can put a short little note there and throw it into someone's present or lunchbox or anything like that, and it is really fun. So here's some close-ups. I added some glitter at the end with some Martha Stewart glitter pens that I had, so that's just an optional thing if you want to do that. You can also use a Wink of Stella glitter pen, which I know a lot of people love. So that finishes off the projects for today. I really hope you enjoyed something that was a little different from the normal video and that it inspires you to do something new and fun. On screen here, I have my past videos for the alleyway stamps. I have 3 of them here that you can click to and watch. Make sure to also subscribe to the alleyway stamps and my YouTube channel if you want to see more crafting tutorials like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.